Let's continue our discussion of online quality standards with the question, should UVI develop its own standards for online courses? Since in general, very little is said about this in the published standards. We might consider this. If we do, here are 4 areas at least that need to be considered. The way a course looks is how the student meets it for the first time, and this includes its organization, such as where assignments are, where the syllabus is, and so on. We could also consider developing UVI quality standards for content. For example, how much of it we need and whether certain formats are preferable to other. All published quality standards mention substantial communication between faculty and students. Do we have anything to say on that subject? What exactly does substantial communication mean? And what does it mean to us in our context? And finally, we might want to make a few statements about grading policies, such as the maximum allowed for participation or the amount allowed of extra credit. These standards may certainly be mirrored in the standards existing for on-ground courses, and if so, perfect, we'll just keep exactly what we've got. Let's look at each of these points. Let's consider how a course looks when a student first walks in quotation marks. There are many themes in Blackboard. I suggest making a choice among them and sticking with it. It's actually quite useful to use different themes for different classes you teach, so you never make a mistake and upload a test into the wrong class, as this particular instructor has done. Of course, it's quite easy to delete it out of Blackboard afterwards, but first you got to find out that you did it. And as you know, the left navigation pane in Blackboard can be modified. Shall we standardize that? If you say yes, I would recommend that we change the word content to weekly content. Another function we might want to use consistently is that of announcements. Should it be used only to announce tests and assignments, or do you have other reasons for using the announcement function? So students do expect a similar treatment in different classes, and how do you want to use the announcement function? Similarly, what content should be the minimum in the information area? Is it only a place for the syllabus and textbook information? Well, that's perfectly good. Or should there be content areas located there as well? All these are questions of how a course looks, feels, and functions. And we haven't even gotten to the content yet. I would never advocate for requiring any particular format of your course content. Courses are very different from one field to the next, as well as from one professor to another. It's a good thing to show individuality. However, the UVI faculty might want to make some statements about the format or formats, such as saying that it's desirable to employ at least 2 or 3 different formats in an online class. Examples of these could be synchronicity, video, animations, text, narration, etc. Much more difficult is setting standards for how much content is needed. In an online class, the element of seat time has disappeared, yet we do want our students to spend at least as much time with the course content as they do in on-ground classes. But perhaps a statement to that effect is sufficient. Is lecturing a foreign concept in an online class? In a manner of speaking, I'm lecturing now, yet it's a very different kind of lecture, since you can pause me anytime, as well as skip ahead or stop me altogether. If the concepts are complex or the students non-native speakers of English, I would actually post a transcript of my presentation as well. In addition, this mini lecture is intentionally brief and not at all the full 60 to 90 minutes of a standard lecture. Partly, this is due to the file size that you generate by making such a long presentation, and since I'm uploading these to YouTube, the maximum there is 15 minutes, and I'm trying to stay around 10. Secondly, we should consider the amount of communication required for a quality UVI course. If lecturing is kept to a minimum, surely some of the traditional time will be filled in with student-instructor communication instead. In my syllabus, I state that I will respond to all issues within 24 hours and provide feedback on all assignments within 48 hours. However, types of communication may be more important than amount. I recommend that you drive as much discussion as possible to the Blackboard discussion boards. Since this is archived and backed up nightly, you're in no danger of losing your messages. Furthermore, it can become an issue of instructor workload if too much communication is handled one-on-one via email or text. And you'll also find that students will respond to each other in the discussion boards and thereby taking some of the weight off you. Whether UVI wants to mandate synchronicity or leave it up to the individual professor is something I'd like to hear your opinions on. Some universities do that, but I suspect it has more to do with preferences of administrators than actual educational value. To which extent we allow points for class participation is an issue both in on-ground and online courses. In a way, it's actually easier in online courses if we define participation as contributions to discussion forums. However, counting posts and assessing their substantiality is quite a task. Allowing or not allowing late work is also much simpler than online class, since all submissions are date stamped by the LMS. Many professors set the deadline of submission to midnight Sunday, knowing that most online students do the bulk of their work over the weekend. As far as grading curves are concerned, I recommend that this be dealt with in exactly the same way it's done in campus classes. Many universities set online course standards at a level of at minimum 3 kinds of assessed or graded activities, such as a test, a paper, and a journal. Of course, one can do a myriad other assignments as well, as we shall discuss in week 4. Creating an online course does indeed take considerably more time than does developing an on-ground course. The payoff, of course, is reusability. If you record your mini lectures as I've done here, it's not a major effort to modify the notes somewhat and re-record. The one issue I have seen new online instructors get bogged down in is responding in detail to too many personal emails. Consider creating a few boilerplate responses such as, "Well, this is an interesting point. Please post it to our online discussion." While you may be able to handle emails from 10 to 20 students, you'll be in complete overload when the program takes off and you have 45 or 145. In addition, to avoid overload, I'd strongly recommend making the content textbook agnostic. If you refer to individual textbooks of a certain edition, by next year there's probably going to be a new edition, or you'll want another book and you have to redo just about all your content, and it's very time consuming. I'd also recommend that the syllabus for an online course be considerably more explicit than for on-ground courses, because you'll need to meet questions of all kinds in the syllabus. When is it due? How is it due? Do I have to do this? Do I have to do that? Because you won't have the opportunity to be discussing that with a class in front of you. Finally, my recommendation is to always do any commenting or assignment feedback in text first. Word, Pages, Excel, whatever, and then upload. In addition to not losing your work that way, you also have a great record of what you've said. And with that, please open the files in this week's file folder and peruse the quality standards documents and the articles. Thank you very much.